Hey guys, how you doing? Ron Zanut here. Well, today I've got a new video review for you. This is of the Hardware Labs Black ICe NEMESIS series of radiators. Now, you may be familiar with Hardware Labs. They're known for high quality and well-performing radiators, and probably most notably the SR1 series, which is a recent generation of radiators that they have out there. Well, today, Performance PCs took stock of a number of the NEMESIS series of radiators, and they were kind enough to send me one. Here we have a 360GTX NEMESIS radiator, and it is designed for both low RPM fans, sub 800 RPM fans, to run quiet and perform well as being scalable for higher performance fans, so higher speed fans. So we're going to find that out. We're actually going to head and we'll take a close-up look at this one, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it to a test. We'll test it out and also compare it to some other radiators that are currently available. So let's have a close-up look. Here are the full specs, so feel free to pause this if you like. So here we have the Black ICe NEMESIS 360GTX radiator. It is a 360, so it houses three 120mm fans, and it utilizes a 2-pass radiator form factor. The dimensions of it are 398mm long by 133mm wide by 54mm thick or high. It's got 16 fins per inch at 25 micron copper fins. And let me zoom in, see a better view there. You can see the actual copper. The edges of the fins you see are painted black, but you can now see the copper of the fins in there. And then you might also notice the finish is the custom dark matter quality finish. Actually looks pretty cool. It's got a nice textured feel to it and pretty rugged. And the rest of the dimensions and specs on this, it is designed for sub 800 RPM ultra stealth fans, so it's optimized for that. But it does also allow optimization and scalable performance for the higher speed fans. It's got increased internal coolant flow rates, has a standard G-quarter inlet and outlet fittings. It uses M4 mounting threads, so the hardware that you receive with it are M4s, and if you're going to put them in special configurations, you will need to get yourself some longer or shorter M4 screws depending on how you're going to install it. The custom dark matter high quality finish. I take a close-up view of the finish there. You can see it's all textured and rugged, and I've banged it around already a little bit, and absolutely, you don't see any mars or any scratches or anything at all. And it is all made from 100% conflict-free material, so there's nothing in there that's going to start corrosion because of the way they manufactured it. And it does have a lifetime warranty against manufacturing defects. Let me go ahead and flip this up and then move the camera in a little closer so you can see the finish a little bit better. Nice solid construction. You see the inlet outlet ports there, G-quarters, end cap. That finish is complete throughout the whole body of the radiator. Looking at the bottom end cap, again, nicely done. And also, I don't know if you noticed that there are no plates underneath where the screws will go through for your fan, so you got to make sure you use the right length screws. But beautiful finish, solid construction. It looks pretty durable. So guys, let me explain to you the test setup here. I thought what I'd do is do a little comparison of cooling properties of the NEMESIS 360GTX, but compare it against a previous generation Hardware Labs Black ICe SR1, which is currently what's on the test bench right now, and also an AlphaCool UT60. So that's a 360 rad as well. So between the three of them, see how well they perform. Now, one thing to note that the SR1 was designed for around sub 1,000 RPM fans, so that was the previous generation, up to 2,000. The NEMESIS 360 GTX, all they state is that it's optimized for sub 800 RPM fans, and scalable to higher, so they don't put a cap on it. And what I thought I would do is I was going to run each of these radiators at a 4.5 overclock on an i7 3930K CPU with 1.36 volts, so a good little amount of voltage there. And I'm going to run the fans, which are some NEMESIS S12A flex fans. So I'm going to run them at 1300 RPM, which is their max, and also at 800 RPM. And we'll see how well they perform. But also, in addition to that, in order to get some higher performance RPM fans, I'm going to test using Gentle Typhoon, the AP15s. Those run as high as 1850 RPM. So I think between having an 800 RPM setting, a 1300 RPM middle of the road, and then 1850, I think that would give you a good representation of the varying speeds and how they perform on each of these radiators, and as well as the Gentle Typhoons have a higher static pressure rating than the NEMESIS. The NEMESIS are more of a K-style fan. They do have, I believe, about 1.6 to 1.9, whereas the Gentle Typhoons have 2.9 of static pressure. So here we have CPU-Z showing the 1.34 voltage at the 4.5 overclock. Then on the test bench, using the BitPhoenix controller, we can dial in the various RPM settings that we're going to use, the 1800, 1300, and the 1850, depending on the fans. And for each of the radiators and the fan setups that we use, we're going to run OCCT version 4.4.0 using all logical cores at the 4.5 overclock setting for 30 minutes. We're going to average the temperature for the min and max for each of the runs, and then I'll put them into a table. And we're going to do those runs 3 times for each of the RPM setting on those fans, so we have a fair representation across each of the configurations to use. And so we're going to do that for the Black ICe NEMESIS 360GTX, the Black ICe SR1 360, and also the AlphaCool NexXxos UT60. And hopefully that'll give us a fair range and representation of the performance of each of those configurations and the 2 different types of fans, the high performance fans along with the your run-of-the-mill average case fans. So what I've done here is taken the average of all of the temps for each of the runs on each of the radiators with the NEMESIS and also the Gentle Typhoon, and I've compiled them in this table and entered in the ambient temperature so we can calculate delta T. Basically, that's what this table does. And then here is the final summary results for the delta T. So as you can see, for the NEMESIS and the Gentle Typhoon at about 800 RPM, the SR1 was a little bit better than the AlphaCool, and the NEMESIS also was a little bit improved than the SR1. Now the NEMESIS NFS12 on the 1300 RPM, they were all pretty close by about a half a degree. But the biggest difference was the Gentle Typhoon running at 1300 RPM and 1850. You can see about a 1.5 to almost 3 degrees difference. So to wrap it all up, the construction of this radiator, as you can see, is outstanding, just like the Black ICe SR1s. This is an extreme form factor, 2-pass radiator with 16 fins per inch of 25 micron fins. The dimension of this radiator actually is just like the SR1, and overall dimensions of this are actually smaller than the AlphaCool radiator, the UT60. You get 6 millimeters thinner, and also a couple of millimeters shorter in length. So for the size of this radiator, it gives you quite a bit of flexibility for various installations in various cases. From a look standpoint, it's sharp looking. You saw the custom dark matter finish on there. It's solid, it's durable. I actually bumped a screwdriver and some screws up against the finish a few times. Never put a scratch or anything in it, and it just looks really sharp. It looked great in any water cooling setup, especially if you're trying to contrast, some white or some other colors that are in there. This radiator should stand up just nice and has a beautiful finish. Now, with regards to performance, you saw it compared against the Black ICe SR1 and also the AlphaCool NexXxos UT60 360 Rad. Now, I originally used the Noctua SF S12A flex fans. They are basically a case style fan. They do have about 1.9 of static pressure, but not the best static pressure for a radiator fan. So that's why I also tested using the General Typhoon, the AP15s, the 1850 RPM fans. So I thought that'd give you a good mix for those of you who have different types of fans out there and you wanted to see how well they perform. Well, this was a good representation, I think. Now, you can see this radiator is also designed for, they call it sub 800 RPM fan. So I, since that's very quiet, I went ahead and tested all the radiators using the 800 RPM. I also did 1300, and then because this radiator is also scalable for higher speed fans, I ran it at the 1850 for the AP15s. And you can see at the lower RPMs, the radiator performed very well. Actually, it's about a degree or so more in my testing. It improved upon the SR1 and also beat the AlphaCool as well. Now, when you got to the higher RPMs, especially on the 1850, then you saw a market increase, about 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees more than the AlphaCool, and about 1.5 degrees more for the SR1. So they did a great job in improving the performance of this radiator over the previous generation and some competitors. And also the other thing too to remember is, like I said earlier, the thickness of this radiator is 54 mils versus 60. So in a smaller form factor, you got better performance than you did with a 60 mil radiator, at least in my testing. And again, I ran it 3 times on each of those radiators for each of those fans, so I think I got a fair representation, but there's still some margin of error that could be in my numbers. But again, just overall, I think that it shows that Black ICe has another winner on their hands, and I really enjoyed using this radiator, and I will be using it in a couple of my upcoming builds. As a matter of fact, I'll be upgrading my main system, and stick around if you want to see this radiator, and also have a 480 GTX that I'll be putting in that system build. Now, in rating this radiator, I have to take in consideration that it is a little bit more expensive than some of the other 360s that are out there. But the trade-off is for slightly smaller footprint and outstanding quality, construction, and performance. I have to give it a notch back up. So I'm going to take a half a nut away from a 5 rating, giving it a 4.5 nuts for the Black ICe NEMESIS 360 GTX. Well, that's it, guys. I hope you liked this review. If you did, please like and favorite, and if you're so inclined, please subscribe. And again, I'd like to thank Performance PCs for sponsoring this radiator so that I could bring it to you. That's it from Ron's a Nut. Thanks for watching.